Welcome to the Week 8 Fantasy Roundup with Ruben and Ryan. We're here to give you some of our top picks for your weekly FanDuel or DraftKings league. And so we're going to start off by talking about who we have on our rosters this week, and then we're going to also focus on some other players you may want to pick up for DraftKings this week who are good values. So let's start off with our quarterbacks. Ruben, I see that you're going with Aaron Rodgers. This week I'm starting Ryan Tannehill. So what are your thoughts on our picks for this week?
Yeah. I love both guys. Tannehill's got a good matchup at Jacksonville. Now, granted, Jacksonville's defense has been somewhat decent the last 3 weeks, but they're still Jacksonville. Ryan Tannehill's been on fire lately. He's been getting rushing yards, and maybe even more importantly here, he's been very accurate, and so that bodes well for the long run. So you picking up Tannehill at a very low price is very good. But I'm going with Aaron Rodgers simply because I think it's going to be a shootout, and every time I think it's going to be a shootout, it's going to be a slugfest. But let's hope that it's a shootout at New Orleans. New Orleans' defense is not good. Aaron Rodgers has been on a roll lately, and the only reason he hasn't been producing monster stats is because he keeps on getting pulled in the third quarter because Green Bay's up 30 points. So his usual 240-yard, 3-touchdown game might be 300-yard, 4-touchdown. It might be a 300-yard, 4-touchdown performance this week. So even though he's the most expensive at $9,000, he is a safe bet. A couple of I want to throw out there are Tony Romo against the R-Skins. He's coming in at a little bit of a higher price at $7,400. It's actually somewhat difficult to run against the R-Skins, so I think the Cowboys are going to have to pass a little bit more this week. He's always going to have about 8 guys in the box, meaning that he's going to have favorable matchups, and so I think he's going to take advantage of that against the R-Skins. And then another name I want to throw out is Ben Roethlisberger. He's coming in at $5,800. Don't be intimidated by the Colts ranking. You see them listed in red. They're first. Yes, they're a solid defense. They tend to play much better at home than on the road, and this isn't a dominant defense by any means. I hate saying that. I'm a diehard Colts fan. But I think Roethlisberger, considering that he's at only $5,800, I think he'll produce some decent stats. And if you want to use your money elsewhere and save at quarterback, then give Big Ben a chance. Okay, at running back, I am starting Andre Ellington versus the Eagles at home. He's a yardage monster. He's coming in at $6,600. He hasn't been scoring many touchdowns. He only has 2 for the year. But I always trust those guys that rack up the yardage because that tends to be more consistent. So I got Andre Ellington, then I got Ben Tate. He's coming off a horrible game last week in Jacksonville. But this week he's playing Oakland at home. He's at a very, very low price at $4,600. He's a feature back. He'll touch the ball at least 20, 25 times. And I think at that price, for any guy that's guaranteed 20, 25 touches, it's hard to look away. Who are some of the running back? And for your running backs, Ryan, I see that you got Eddie Lacy and Matt Forte. Eddie Lacy's coming on here. What do you think about some of these names that were just mentioned, and are there any other names that you'd like to throw out there?
Yeah, I went with Matt Forte, even though he's the most expensive running back at $8,800. He's getting so many carries and so many catches for the Bears. He's top 5 in receptions. He may even actually be the number 1 player right now in receptions at over 40 receptions, getting a ton of yards, playing a New England defense that's sort of banged up. So he's worth that price at $8,800. I'm going with Eddie Lacy at $5,200. They're playing at New Orleans. You sort of spoke about how New Orleans' defense is not that good this year. Should be a high-scoring game. And with James Starks questionable for this game, Eddie Lacy could see those carries going from 10 to 12 up to 18 to 20. And those added carries and added maybe 1 to 2 receptions could really add to his point total this week. Some other running backs I like this week, Le'Veon Bell at $6,300 playing against the Colts. Like you said, the Colts defense has been strong, but they're much better at home. And they're definitely a better pass defense than they are a run defense. Lamar Miller at $6,000 playing at Jacksonville with Moreno out for the year with the ACL injury. Miller is going to get a lot of the carries and receptions out of the backfield. And my cheap bargain for this week is Travis Cadet. He's an actual football player. He plays for the Saints, and with Pierre Thomas injured, and Kyrie Robinson banged up, and even Mark Ingram got injured last week with his shoulder. Cadet has actually scored more than 10 points in 3 straight weeks. He's the receiving option right now out of the backfield, so he's a great value at $3,000. Now, moving on to our receivers. This week I am starting Vincent Jackson, Julian Edelman, and Des Bryant. And Ruben, I see that you're starting A.J. Green, if healthy, and Doug, I'm always mad Baldwin, as well as Des Bryant. What are some thoughts on those receivers and some other good values for Week 8?
Okay, just real quickly, I made a mistake earlier. Some of the names at running back I wanted to throw out were Andre Ellington, Ben Tate, but I'm starting Le'Veon Bell and Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon's got a good matchup at Tampa Bay. I think he's an 80% Adrian Peterson, and so at $4,900, he's undervalued now and will continue to be undervalued for a while. Take advantage of this time. Okay, so for those names that you mentioned at receiver, obviously you're going to have to check going into Saturday, going into Sunday morning with A.J. Green. He hasn't practiced yet or practiced yet fully, so things aren't looking great. But if he plays, I don't think he's going to be a decoy player like Calvin Johnson or Jimmy Graham. I think he's going to be fully healthy if in fact he does play. So at $5,900, it's going to be the cheapest you will be able to get A.J. Green all year. Doug, I'm always mad Baldwin at $4,700. He's the #1 receiver. Now, granted, it's the Seahawks. You never know where the ball's going. But he's always been a reliable possession receiver. Last week, he had over 100 yards. He had a touchdown. He's going to be featured more with Percy Harvin out, and so take advantage of that low price. And then for Des Bryant, I mentioned Tony Romo earlier on Monday Night Football against the R-Skins. Like I said, the R-Skins are very susceptible in the air or through the air. And so at $6,900, he's not terribly expensive. Some other receivers that I want to throw out are just Sammy Watkins and DeAndre Hopkins. Sammy Watkins is coming on. Kyle Orton as his quarterback. Now I think he's a top 20 receiver the rest of the season. He's only coming in at $5,700 against a bad Jets secondary to begin with, and one that's somewhat depleted now. And then DeAndre Hopkins, he's been silently putting up some stats, or a lot of games he hasn't really been drawing a lot of attention, but he's still putting up stats. Last week he was targeted 9 times. He had, I believe, 108 yards receiving. And so even though he didn't score, always look at those guys who are racking up some yardage. Now at tight end, I am starting Jordan Reed this week at Dallas. He's coming in only at $4,000. I think he's now getting fully healthy, and so he's got the talent to be like a Jimmy Graham. He has the talent to be like Jimmy Graham, and so at $4,000, this might be the cheapest you'll get him for a while. I see that at tight end you're starting Zach Ertz, Ryan. What do you think about Zach Ertz, and are there any other names at tight end that you like?
Yeah, the reason I went with Zach Ertz, he's only $3,200 this week. He's playing at Arizona, and for the past 2 or 3 years, Arizona has been one of the worst teams defending the tight end. So always look for a tight end to have one of their best weeks against the Cardinals. And Ertz is averaging 10 fantasy points through DraftKings a week, so he's always a good bargain for $3,200. And look for him to get maybe 5 receptions, over 50 yards, and he's always a threat for a touchdown. Some of the other tight ends I think are good values. Obviously, Gronk, if you want to spend big money at tight end. Gronkowski's only $5,900. He's the most expensive tight end. The reason I like him against the Bears defense has not been playing that great this year. Gronkowski's playing a lot more each week, and he's a target monster. He's looking at double-digit targets every week. He's the #1 option for Brady, and they've been playing a lot better in New England. Some cheaper options for tight ends, Scott Chandler at $3,100 playing against, as you mentioned, the weak Jets pass defense. He's had 3 weeks in a row of 50 yards or more and 3 or more receptions. Heath Miller at $3,300 playing against a poor Colts defense against tight ends. That's a great value for $3,300. And then some mid-level guys who I think are worth the money if you want to spend a little bit more. Greg Olsen at $5,500. Yes, he's playing the Seahawks defense, but Seattle has to go all the way across the country to play at Carolina. And Olsen's been the clear #1 target. He had over 100 yards receiving last week for the Panthers. And then Dwayne Allen at $3,900. The Colts offense scores so much, they throw the ball so much that Dwayne Allen is always a threat for 5 catches, 50-plus yards, and a touchdown for that high-powered Colts offense. For defenses, looks like you're starting the Lions defense playing at Atlanta in London, and I'm going with the Dolphins playing at Jacksonville. What are your thoughts on some of the defenses this week?
Yeah, the reason I love the Lions is that it's not really at Atlanta. Atlanta tends to play much better at home, but might as well be a road game for the Falcons. The Falcons' offensive line makes Sam Bradford and Jake Locker look like look healthy. I mean, those guys probably feel sorry for the Falcons' offensive line just simply because it is already banged up. They lost another guy last week. If you watch the Falcons play, it just seems like Matt Ryan's got less than a second to get rid of the ball every time. The Lions lead the league in sacks, and so I see at least 6 or 7 sacks. It's an easy 6 or 7 points right there. I think the Lions are going to have their way with the Falcons in London. And so even though they're the second most expensive defense at $3,400, it is more than a safe bet. And then I also like the Patriots. They're coming in at a very low value or low price of $2,800. They're playing the Bears. The Bears have had some issues in the locker room this week. Seems like Jay Cutler's always good for a couple bonehead mistakes, so take advantage of that. And then, Ryan, you mentioned that you're going to start the Dolphins. I like them. They've been a sneaky defense all year. They're playing at Jacksonville. Jacksonville's not going to put up 25, 30 points on you. Even if the ceiling is not high, or let's say even if they don't score 15, 20 points, I think they're guaranteed at least 5, 7, maybe 10 points. So the Dolphins are another safe bet. Just in conclusion here, I think, Ryan, you mentioned the sneaky pickup or selection of the week in Travis Cadet. He sounds like an auto-generated player on Madden, but if he's coming into the game, he may only get 3, 4, 5 carries, but he's also going to get 4, 5, 6 catches in a PPR format. That is invaluable.
And one more thing I want to mention, we didn't really get a chance to get to the flex position. I know you're starting Bell from the Lions at the flex position. Again, playing that horrible Falcons defense, and it's not even a home game for the Falcons. And I think Reggie Bush is a little bit banged up, so that could be a good game for Bell. And then for my flex position, I'm going with Ahmad Bradshaw. He's at 5,900. I don't think he can keep up the pace of getting a touchdown reception each game. But if Trent Richardson is injured this week and doesn't play with the hamstring problems, Bradshaw's going to be on the field a lot more than what he's used to. And that added playing time should be able to produce a larger stats, maybe get around 20 carries, 5 or 6 catches. They can put up a huge number against a somewhat questionable Pittsburgh defense. But like Ruben said, pay attention to some of the injuries as we get closer to Sunday, because some of these muddled backfields like the Saints and the Colts, where you have guys splitting time, even with Buffalo, keep an eye on who's playing and who's not, because that could have a huge change in their value based on if they're splitting time or if they're going to be the main running back for the team. So good luck in Week 8 with your DraftKings and lineup, and make sure you check fflockerroom.com. We have a great article each week that we put out as some of the best values for your DraftKings leagues. So make sure you check that out each week. Thanks for watching, and good luck in Week 8.